Maybe you might tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think I'm quite interested in that role that personality plays in just how we see the world and how we make decisions.
Yeah.
I think it can sometimes be overlooked. You know, we assume that we're all operating with the same information or from the same kind of standpoint or biases, but not really recognizing that how we see the world, how we interpret that information, how we make decisions, how we take risks. There's a kind of, you know, there's a level going on underneath that we might not be fully aware of.
Yeah.
For example, you know, if we were looking at personality and say the, you know, extroversion, someone who's higher in this, you know, more extroverted might be much more comfortable making decisions as part of a group. Whereas someone who's more introverted probably prefers, you know, appreciates that time to think things through, then come up with a solution with the group. If we think of, say, you know, agreeableness, if someone's higher in that, they tend to prefer that harmony. They're trying to avoid conflict. I suppose a potential downside of that could be they might avoid voicing their opinions or getting their point across directly in the hopes of remaining diplomatic.
Yeah.
Someone who's highly conscientious, they'd prefer to have a plan, be organized, think things through. They'd be less comfortable with that on-the-fly decision making.
Yeah.
If we think of another trait is openness to experience. I suppose people who score high in that, they tend to be more curious and imaginative, and they have that need for variety. And so they might make decisions that favor change or novelty, even just for the sake of change. Whereas someone who's the opposite, you know, very low on that openness to experience, they're probably preferring the tried and tested methods. Yeah. They like to, you know, learn from the past and use that past experience to inform their decisions. And then I'm going through the big five in my
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to pick you up because you mentioned risk, because that's something I'm really curious about. Because if you think about a complex world, as I've described it, where like there's a level of unpredictability, so therefore there's going to be a risk. It's not like the simple thing where there is a solution. Yeah, I know how to do this. So how does risk affect the way I make a decision, either individually or collectively?
Yeah, it does, I think, have a huge impact, especially like we said, in that complex world where kind of every decision involves some level of risk. There's some level of unknown and unknowability. So I use the risk type compass as kind of a framework or a psychometric assessment, because it just allows you to explore that human side of risk, which I think was kind of previously unexplored areas of risk. We used to kind of go, okay, we need to rely on maybe statistics or the, you know, the procedures and policies, and you have these kind of risk mitigation strategies. Yeah. But like we said, that kind of misses the element of the person who's making those decisions. So the risk type compass, it doesn't capture all aspects of our personality, but it does help us understand, you know, themes such as how naturally resilient we are, our natural preference towards change and unfamiliarity, how we perceive and take and manage risks. And that can obviously have huge implications for making decisions in a complex world, because it can allow us to identify those potential strengths or potential pitfalls with each type. And when you better understand that, say, about yourself, you know, you can then understand, okay, how do I leverage my strengths, or do I need to develop skills and strategies in order to be more effective? And then when used with teams, the team can then be aware of their group strengths or group limitations. They can seek out diversity, you know, not just diversity being what we can see, but, you know, difference of personality and how we see the world. I think with a greater understanding and awareness of different personality types, I think it can reduce conflict, like negative conflict. It can probably improve creativity and problem solving. So there'd be research to suggest that, you know, diversity can help problem solving and decision making when there's efforts made to actually acknowledge and celebrate diversity. If you just throw a group of people together and be like, off you go. You know, you're going to get one person who sees the world a particular way and goes, why is this other person, you know, doing it this way? That's just so wrong and so different to how I do it.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of awareness, you know, like, I'm sure like we've all had those kind of experiences. Like, say if, you know, if someone is naturally very kind of optimistic and resilient, they might be frustrated when they're working with someone who they perceive as pessimistic. But actually, if there was an awareness, they could say, well, that person is really great at spotting potential threats that I missed. They're great at kind of scanning the environment for threats, because they're naturally geared towards doing that. So if there's that awareness, you can kind of leverage it off quite well, I think.